So yeah, I'm just kind of touching up on some details on the bloodletter dudes. I tried to do for the obsidian swords, I put on a gloss to help them shine, and I also try to get a little bit of silver into it as well, so that the silver would reflect light a little bit. Some of the swords have more silver on it than others. But it's not too terribly bad. But some of the swords that put the gloss coat on didn't have. It's got like the coat. Oops. The coat kind of got a little thick, and then dried thick. So now I gotta kind of shave it down and make it smooth again. And that happened to a few of them. So now I'm just kind of wondering if I should just go straight black and forget the attempt to try to do a black pearl for the piece. So I don't know. They can definitely tell areas where it kind of like globbed up. Then when I was also trying to do the pearl effect, where I realized that some areas were pretty thick with the silver, I tried to go back over it with a wet brush and just try to break it apart, and that really didn't do very good for the attempt either. So I'd have to say that trying to do a pearl effect without using pearl based paint is not something to attempt. This sword here turned out really good, so I'm not really going to touch that. It's kind of funny, the gloss shows a little bit of damage on the sword here that probably happened when it was being taken off the sprue. So now I'm just kind of going over the swords, checking for the imperfections. Maybe some of them will keep the purling. Gene Simmons I didn't do the purling on. So, but I did put a bit of gloss on his tongue. So I'm going to do that on all of the other. I mean, some of them already have gloss coating done to their tongue to kind of make it look wet. So some of the other ones will have that done as well on them. This one here is a sword I tried going back on with the. Well, I didn't like the way how the silver looked. It was too thick. And then I tried going over it, and it just the layer on top of layer just did not do it justice. You can definitely see some rough texturing to it. So now I'm just trying to, I'm going to probably pretty much sand this whole thing. Well, hopefully not, you know, damaging it. And I am using the camera sled that I showed earlier. I'm still trying to get used to where I should have my hands. I have noticed that the chuck doesn't really seem to hold the ball joint anymore, so I can already tell that it is wearing down quite fast already. there, so hopefully once I go over that with a couple thin coats of black, that should fix that rough texture. This underside's not too bad, so I probably will just do all black and then gloss coat it. So I'm not going to try to do the purling again. This in here I can just feel, I can feel the gloss with a bump right on the edge of the sword here, and that actually that bump's damage already. That's from, it looks like damage coming off the sprue, so I guess I'll leave it, because otherwise it looks pretty good. So yeah, I'm not going to experiment with the purling anymore, as I've already said a few times. This one here I didn't do anything on, so that's going to get just straight black, straight gloss coat. This one here I just sanded it a little bit, so I better keep that in a place where I can find it. This one here isn't too bad, so we'll leave that one alone. No, that's Gene Simmons. This one here I'm still working on the banner. I got the gold, still takes a little bit more layers yet. The blood, I put some gloss on it to see how wet the gloss would make it look like. And I'm still working on the bone work. But this one here I did some of the purling on the sword. I think this was the first one I did it on, and actually didn't turn out too bad. I'd have to say probably the standard bearer was always the experimental model I would try something on to first. So really, only 3 models turned out bad during that purling, so I guess, I mean, overall it wasn't too much of a loss on that. Again, I only have like 2 models. I think there's only 2 models in the collection I didn't do purling to, so they'll just have a straight, I'm just going to do a straight gloss coat on them. I'm just not going to try that purling attempt again. So, but yep, I'll touch these up now. So the gloss I'm using is the Liquitex Gloss Medium Varnish. Now, you can use a gloss medium varnish as a finish coat to a lot of your models. It's not a true varnish, but it is usable as a finish coat for all your paintings and stuff like that. But of course, it is a gloss finish. You can try mixing the gloss finish with a matte medium. If you mix the two together, it'll give you more of a satin finish to it. You can experiment that with the anyway how you want. Like I said, I have in the previous test for the golden paints, it came out a little glossy. So I'll be using a matte medium to dull down that shine. But for the swords, I want them to be pretty shiny. But first I have to touch them up with a black coat. I'm reaching into my toolbox that I've been using as a carrying case for my paints when I go up to outpost. Alright, and then the black I'm using is the Liquitex Mars Black. They have an Ivory Black. The Ivory Black is a lighter shade than the Mars Black. Suppose I could try the Golden Black, but we'll save that for another experiment. Now I got my brush here soaking in water. It's that much water with just 2 drops of Flow-Aid in it. And as you know how I paint, I usually just do a little dab on my table here, my palette. We'll use that for now, see how that works. So there's my little dab. And now that my brush is ready, I'm gonna get some paint on the brush and fix up the roughed areas that I sanded down. Like, since I'm not going to bother to re-pearlize this, I have to cover everything back up. And again, this brush has been my workhorse right now for all my painting. Sorry, one of the bloodletters is, well, 2 bloodletters are actually poking me. But this is my low Cornwell #1 brush, flat. It is a flat. It's not a round. So, but I've been pretty impressed with how amazing the detail I can get into it. The one thing is that it's getting a little hammered though now after using it for both the Sorcerer Siniche and these bloodletter dudes. Gold, I've come to notice, gold really does a number on the paintbrush. So my suggestion, if you are going to be working with gold, try to learn a technique where you're constantly keeping your brush wet or cleaning the brush in the stages of applying the gold, because it will mess up the brush. Alright, we'll have to let that one sit. Find a place where I can put them. Again, I'm just like, so like here, I'm going to do another stage, so I'm going to dip my brush, wipe off a little bit of that excess water. Now I'm putting it into the paint, and then I actually now that I got paint on it, I'm applying it somewhere else on my palette to get some of the excess paint off. Another thing I also did with the gloss on some of the models was I bathed the gold with the gloss, and it actually couldn't really tell if it made any benefits to it or not. Alright, we'll let that one sit. I did get this side a little heavy with the coat, but it didn't look like I had enough paint on the brush when I first applied it. So here's one that you can see it's flat and then shiny. This is the side that had some rough brush strokes, so I sanded that down a little bit. The sandpaper I used, I don't think really had that fine of a grit to it, and it's actually sandpaper, since I do a lot of black and white pencil sketching, charcoal sketching. Actually, I kind of moved more on to charcoal now, but I just used a sandpaper for sharpening the points. Well, actually, you can use the sandpaper for a lot of different things. But in case you're wondering what sandpaper I was using, that was the sandpaper I was using was for pencils. Trying to get in here without really screwing up the gold work, but that was inevitable. I'll just have to retouch the gold work. Since I already got a brush dedicated to working with gold, not that big of an issue. And then the flat part here is not from sanding. That flat part is me just painting over the silvered area. And I think I used an ivory black instead of the Mars black, because the ivory has a lighter, like I said, is a lighter shade. This little bugger is going to be a little tricky to get in there. A little shaky on the hands today. One time I was doing a video on these guys that eventually I scrapped just because my hands are shaking horribly. I don't know what it was, but I mean, my artwork came out fine. The artwork came out just fine, but it was just way too shaky for the camera. So I'm going to let that dry and give it a second coat.